The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for getting on our webinar tonight. My name is Wisdom Cole. On the line with me is Derek Lewis, our National Field Organizing Manager. Thank you for being here on time for our Fundraising 101 webinar. We're going to give about 2 more minutes for a few more folks to jump on the line. But again, thank you for being here on time. We're going to spend about an hour today just talking about different techniques to raise funds for your units, as well as different resources to support you all in the rest of the year. Thank you for being here. For those of you just joining us right now, we're going to give it a couple more minutes for folks to hop on to our webinar. Again, thank you for joining us tonight for our Fundraising 101 webinar. Alrighty, y'all. We're going to get started for tonight on our webinar. Thank you for holding tight with us as more folks got on the line. Real quick, I'd like to introduce myself again. My name is Wisdom Cole, and I'm the National Organizing Manager for the Youth and College Division. And I want to extend a belated Founders Day to all our NAACP members. Thank y'all for celebrating with us yesterday. I saw all the photos on Instagram and Facebook celebrating 110 years of service and fighting for civil rights. And so thank you all for your hard work, for being members of this phenomenal organization and continuing to hang with us and work with us as we continue to fight for what's right with us in our community. Real quick, I'd like to introduce Derek Lewis, who's our national field organizer. Derek, would you like to say a few words before we get started? All right, real quick. So before Derek introduces himself, what we're going over tonight for our fundraising 101 webinar is we're going to talk about some upcoming dates and deadlines. So talking about things around compliance, in terms of thinking about for the regional CRTIs as well as convention. Then we're going to talk about some fundraising tools and techniques. And then last but not least, we'll have some resources for y'all to support you as you are planning in the field. And then we will end with our question and answer session. So if folks have any questions, lingering things that they want to discuss, feel free to drop a question in the question box below. In addition to that, we also have, for the most up-to-date information, please follow us on our Instagram page at NAACP_YC. In addition, we also have some handouts that are available for y'all in this webinar. That's actually going to help you out. So feel free to download those throughout the webinar. If you have questions, definitely feel free to ask any questions at the end or put questions in our question box. All right. Let me see. Derek, can you speak?
Hello.
Yep, we can hear you.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Derek Lewis. I'm the National Food Organizer. Um, Happy Black History Month. I'm excited to be on this webinar to give you the tools that you need to fundraise money and to also be more of an effective chapter in your community. We can always do great work, but without having necessary funds to do great work and have more opportunities and access to different resources, that's where we can go from good to great to better.
Thank you, Derek. I appreciate that. And I think what's really important for us to think about as we're thinking about fundraising is thinking about oftentimes people ask me, how do we make sure we fundraise for membership? How do we fundraise to go to convention? How do we fundraise to go to CRTI, right? We have all these different events that do cost money. And it's really, really important for us to think about are we supporting our units in getting there, right? But more importantly, especially for people who are in school, people who are constantly changing positions, right? Especially within college chapters and even youth councils, right? It's such a high turnaround because people are moving on to bigger and better things. They're graduating from college. They're moving on from youth councils to college chapters or junior youth councils to youth councils. Thinking about how do you develop sustainable models to support your youth council or your college chapter and making sure that they always have funding, right? So you can plan for funding for this year and get funding to go to convention or get funding for compliance or get funding for CRTI. But what does it really mean to actually plan for the next 4 to 5 years and actually make sure that you have sustainable funding that will constantly support you throughout your time in the NAACP as well as future members of your unit, right? And oftentimes we want to think about how universities, different community centers, and corporations can support us in making sure that we have funds for years to come. So definitely stay tuned for those tips that will help you have sustainable funding. So really quickly, I just want to remind people of our all-in youth and college campaign goals. Right now, our goal is to increase compliance by March 1st in each region and also have an increase of voting delegates by April 22nd. And Derek will talk a little about how that works, but essentially our goal is to recruit, retain, and revive units, right? We want to recruit new members. We want to make sure that we are making sure that our membership is the heart and soul of our organization, and so we want to have as many members as possible. We also want to retain compliant units. So for people who have already been in compliance, for folks who have already been doing the good work, making sure they stay in compliance. And then there's a lot of units that have been active formally, but have new people who are interested in them. And so how do we reactivate chapters and support the rechartering process for units that have formally been active? So dates and deadlines.
All right, dates and deadlines, guys. I know we've been preaching compliance, but compliance is important. Just like Wisdom said, having delegates representation at the national convention so that we can actually have power there. Again, real quickly, the 3 requirements that we're looking for nationals is for you to have 25 paid members. This 25 paid members is annually. So what I've learned that the best method of practice is to set a deadline or a date, either in the fall or the spring, to where you collect our dues and then send it off all at once instead of doing it periodically or throughout different times of the semester, because that's when you tend to lose track, and also not good with the members when their membership expiration is. Another thing is, if a member does submit their dues online, make sure you keep record of that. So when you do send in your membership summary report, is that that member is accounted for and not at large. All right. Next is our year-end financial report. The submission and the dues. They'll both due on March 1st. The dues is $75, and also the financial report is due on the 1st as well. When you do this, please make sure that you, however you send in your method of payment, if that's from a credit card, make sure that you have the money in the account. So I know it takes up to 3 to 4 business days, probably even longer for them to process that. If not that, then make sure you have a money order or a check, and make sure that you keep copies of that, just in case any situation something gets lost. We have record that it was submitted, and that we can also trace it and find it. All right, so after these deadlines, the next important deadline that you want to look at is April 22nd. April 22nd is the deadline for compliance. It's compliance before convention. So after March 1st, if you do not pay your $75 assessment fee, you will be charged with a $100 late fee, which would be a total of $175. Now, the reason why the April 22nd date is important is because this is when we're talking about compliance, and also possibly our convention fee being cheaper for the unit. So in a situation to where you are compliant by April 22nd, so you have 25 members, you also submitted your year-end financial report along with the dues, you will be able to pay the compliance fee and also have delegates represent you at convention. If you do not have, if you're not in compliance by April 22nd, it's after the 22nd, you will have to pay, of course, the your year-end financial assessment fee, along with having your 25 members, and also you would pay the non-convention compliant fee. Now, usually in the past, if you're not in compliance, you're not able to have delegates. But if you are in compliance after April 22nd, you are able to have delegates. You'll just be paying the non-compliant fee. So either way it goes, let's make sure that we have our delegates out there. So that's paying if we're paying the compliant fee or the non-compliant fee.
And can you talk to us a little bit about why it's important for us to have delegates and voting representation at the national convention?
Yeah, most definitely. So later on in the presentation, I'm going to touch upon it as well. But when we're talking about the national convention and having delegates, we're talking about representation for our unit and choosing our regional leadership, and also passing resolutions at the convention. So I know that something that's very common is the state assessment fees. That is either it's too expensive, or some units have a better life than other units versus in their state. So a resolution can be passed to where we can have one fixed fee across youth and college divisions, so that it's more affordable. If we do want to pass a resolution, we'll have to have the numbers, the representation, voting power to make that move.
And the link there below allows you to do what? Can
you say that again?
The link?
Yeah, so this link right here at the bottom, this link is a video to show you how to fill out the year-end financial report. Nazar Scott, a compliance officer, goes through step by step, and he also mentions the part when we're talking about compliance and having delegates there as well. If you have any questions, I know that he always refers in the video, he gives out his contact information. You can always contact him or contact myself in a situation to where you don't know what your compliance status is as far as your financial status. You can always email me, and I can speed up the process with that. And I'll give out my email at the end of the presentation if needed. All right, next we have our regional CRTI. Our regional CRTI stands for our Civil Rights Advocacy Training Institute. So this is where we'll be going to each region, giving out trainings, mobilizing and educating our people, our young leaders on the issues, and also how best to tackle those issues on a local level. So as you can see, we have Region 1, April 26th through the 27th. Region 2, that'll be May 3rd through the 4th. Region 3, that'll be April 13th through the 14th. Region 4 will be March 15th through the 16th. Region 5 will be in March on the 28th through the 31st. Region 6 will be April 5th through the 6th. And March 7th, and Region 7 will be March 22nd through the 23rd. And if you don't know exactly what region you're in, before we go that, at the bottom of this page, you see that there's a registration link. This is the official registration link for you to register for the regional portal. Now, the prices are fixed. That's what I've been seeing so far, and that's set at $50 for a youth attendee. So it's $50 for you to attend, and that's just for the portal. And I believe that covers you for those 2 days, 2 or 3 days, depending on what region you're in. And if you don't know what region you're in, we have a map right here to show you, just in case this breaks it down. If you're a visual person, this shows you what region you're in.
Really quickly, that link for registration for Katai, it has some of the registration links up. Not all of them are done. All the ones that are coming up soon should be up there, right? So if you are in region 4, if you're in region 7, if you're in region 5, I believe those links are up because those ones are the ones that are coming up the soonest. But if you're in region like 1 or 2 or 6, those regions, the registration link might be up there a little bit later. And so just stay tuned for that. But for the most update information about registration, you definitely want to go to naacp.org/CRATI. Anything else you want to add, Derek?
No, sir.
All right. So next we're going to go over fundraising tools and techniques. So essentially, fundraising is the basis of raising assets or resources from various sources to support the organization, right? As we know, many of our units have been raising funds through bake sales. I know Valentine's Day is coming up tomorrow, and so folks are selling cookies and candies. Many folks have profit nights where they ask organizations to donate a percentage of their proceeds for a night to their organization or to their unit. And so we want to talk about how do you do that on different levels, and also how do you create sustainable income for units, so you're making sure that you are constantly having support for membership dues, support for compliance fee, support for getting to convention, right? Or getting to Kratai, because we know that those things can get expensive. And so it's really important that we think about not just this year, but years to come. So before you start fundraising, you want to start thinking about what is your organizational budget, right? What do you already have in your bank account? And Derek will talk a little bit later about how to set a bank account up, but knowing that, knowing how to get access to your nonprofit tax status, right? So each unit has a tax ID status, right? So the reason why we have an end of the year report, the reason why you pay a $75 fee is because essentially the $75 fee is a processing fee to make sure that your tax ID status is updated every single year, right? That way people can donate to your unit and making sure that you can get the funding that you need necessary. And so that's our one thing we ask everyone to fill out the end of the year report and to pay the $75 fee. You want to make sure you have a donor tracking database, right? So who are the people who are constantly donating to your units, right? Who are people that you know, do it every year, or do it every 2 years, or every month, or whatever frequency they do it? How are you making sure you're tracking that down and passing it down to the new leadership that comes up, right? You also want to make sure you have a system that quickly acknowledges donations to donors, right? So we'll talk about it a little bit later, but usually within 48 to 72 hours, you want to be sending a thank you note to people, letting them know that you received their donation and that you are appreciative of it, so you can continue to receive that in the future. You want to know what individuals, so what staff, what board members, what volunteers are trained to ask for money, right? So who is able to actually go out and do fundraising? Who's actually able to go out and send solicitation letters? Who's able to actually talk about the organization in a way where people will want to donate to your unit, right? So making sure that people are trained in this skill, right? Making sure that people are have knowledge of the available funding sources, right? So what are funding sources that are on your campus? What are funding sources that are in your community? What are funding sources that are available to you nationally, right? Knowing what are all the possibilities to receive funding. Making sure you have basic materials about the organization, or basic knowledge about how the organization works. a knowledge of who you are and why you're part of the organization. Oftentimes we talk about knowing your why, and then making sure you have clarity and agreement about how the funds will be used, right? So making sure you know exactly how that's allocated. And later on, we'll talk about an itemized budget. So you want to create a fundraising plan. So essentially, you want to know where you are. Create a list of your strengths and weaknesses. So what are the things that you have, right? Maybe you're doing bake sales well, and people are you're getting a lot of money off of that, or maybe you're not, right? Oftentimes we do these sales or selling things, right? Where oftentimes we have to pay a lot of money for our supplies, and the amount that we actually get from it doesn't actually add up to the amount that we paid for it, right? So we're actually lose money than gain money, and so we want to think about what are ways we are losing money versus what are the best ways that we are getting money, right? Are we getting money from our adult units? Are we getting money from our community centers? Are we getting money from our campus leaders? Like, what are the best ways, and making sure you're noting that down. You want to create a team, right? So oftentimes people have a finance committee. If you don't have a finance committee, I'd really advise you to create a finance committee, right? It can be a team of 4 to 5 people led by your treasurer. And their focus is just making sure that your unit constantly has money and is constantly building wealth for your unit, right? Oftentimes we have all these different committees, right? And I would say some of the most important committees to have are your membership committee, your political action committee, and your finance committee, right? Because those are things that we are constantly doing every single year. You want to create a plan. So identify your major, your mid-level, and small donors. And I'll talk about that in a minute. You want to think about, why do people give to the NAACP, and why is it important for them to give to your unit? You want to work the plan, and then at the end, you want to make sure that you don't forget the data. So it's really important that you database, right? Making sure you're noting who gave you funds for what, how was it allocated, how did you spend it? Because oftentimes, folks who donate money to you will also ask for a report back. So they want to know, what you used the money for, how the funds were spread out, how did the event turn out, how many people came to the event. Whatever you use your funding for, they want to know the result of it, right? So if you're using your funding to go to convention, oftentimes people want to know how many people are going, what are people going to be learning at the convention space, and oftentimes they want to ask, how can you bring what you learned in that space back to your campus, back to your community, back to your school? So maybe, when you're asking for funding, you're saying, hey, if we are funded to go to convention, we're going to do a workshop on political advocacy, or we're going to do a workshop on direct action, or we're going to do a workshop on how to run a successful unit, right? So something where you can give back to the community in which they're donating to you. Right, so we want to identify the different levels of donors, right? So small donors, oftentimes we think of them as individual donors, people who do personal donations because they support the NAACP, because they have relationships with people who are part of the NAACP, right? So those are individual donations that you receive maybe on a day-to-day basis, maybe from a bake sale, maybe from any type of profit that you're doing immediately. But then we think about our mid-level donors, right? So our mid-level donors are thinking about places in our campus or places that in our community that have or hold institutionalized funding pots, right? So oftentimes in our adult units, or oftentimes in our community centers, or places where there's funding available, they have line items, they have budgets that they are deciding on every single year. Those are places where you want to think about mid-level donorship, where they can constantly give you money every single year because they're constantly raising funds. And then our major donors, we're thinking about people like corporate sponsorships. What are ways in which people who have corporations that are in our communities can support our units, right? So oftentimes corporations have a community promise or some kind of negotiation where, like, them being in that area, they also want to give back to that area by either providing computers, by providing resources, by providing funding, ways in which they can give back to the community. And so you want to identify those major donors, those mid-level donors, and those small donors. So a person may give money for many reasons, right? A person gives money to a specific organization because of the ability, right? So what ability does that organization have? What is the belief in that organization, and who is the contact, right? So oftentimes we talk about relational organizing, right? So what are the relationships that you build with people, that they believe in you and they believe in the work that you are doing, right? Oftentimes we say it's very important not to burn any bridges, right? When you don't burn bridges, you never know what opportunities are open to you, right? People that you've connected with in the past may come back to you, and you might be able to connect with them for them to have funding to support your unit, or support your unit even after you have become an alumni or after you have graduated and moved on, right? You're always thinking, how can you give back to the people who have supported you? When you're identifying potential donors, you want to look for people who feel they have the ability to give and who believe in your organization. So thinking about people who believe in the NAACP and the mission, right? So, some really good potential donors or potential bodies of funding are looking at your NAACP adult branches, looking at student body government, looking at places like Student Life Office. Oftentimes on campuses, there's a diversity fund, right? There's funds to support programs that promote diversity, right? That's a really great place for the NAACP to reach for funds. Scholarships, right? If there are places where people can, write grants and receive scholarships to support the NAACP, that's also a great spot. And then, like I said earlier, corporations and local businesses, right? Oftentimes local businesses will have a group that they sponsor or people that they support, and they want to show they support by having a fundraiser at their business, or having a picture of the unit in their window showing that they support that unit. And so looking at what are local businesses that may support your unit. All right, Derek, would you like to talk about our solicitation letters?
All right, thank you, Liz. So, solicitations are sponsorship letters. So when you think of these, this is basically just your letter of ask. And I know there's always saying that says if you don't, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So you always have to always be willing to take that ask and also be willing to take the risk to make that ask, because you never know what the answer may be. So these letters are used for fundraising and collecting donations for programs. Solicitation letters are included six things that you always want to include. The first one is that you want to identify your organization, and identify the organization, who you're writing it to, and also who you are as well. Also, the purpose of the letter. So, what is the whole purpose of this letter? Is it for an event? Are you doing something for the community? What is the common correlation between you and other companies, so the company is more willing to give you funds? And then the ask. So what exactly are you looking for? When you think about the ask, you also want to itemize what exactly you're doing, because if you're doing Walmart, for example, Walmart will probably give you a gift card, or even give you, or actually give you exactly what you asked for. So you never know. So be very specific with your ask. And then also you want to highlight in the letter is how will the funds be used, and why you're writing a letter. You want to tell a story. You want to tell a story on facts and also a storytelling. And also we also have a letter, an example of one that we actually want to go through. And then at the end, you always want to say thank you. Always, always, always. All right. So at the beginning, like I said, you want to identify who you're writing it to. So I hope this note finds you and your company doing well. So started off on a warm greeting and recognizing the company, and then recognize yourself. The Houston-Tilson University Unit 69AA is off to an amazing start. Since being nationally recognized, the HT chapter has been hard at work fulfilling the mission of the NAACP. During the 2016-2017 academic year, the unit has hosted a number of game-changer programs and events to exemplify what NAACP continues to stand for. So just right there, I gave the who I'm writing it to, who I am, and also a brief summary of what I've done in our mission. One thing that I would do that wasn't done in here is also highlight the mission, because everybody doesn't know what we do or even what the NAACP is. So you don't want to make the assumption that somebody knows who the NAACP is. All right. So from there, you want to go into the work that you did. So we're talking about the facts. So right here, it was very lengthy of what I did previously. But what you want to do is highlight your wins, highlight the victories that you've done. If you had a voter registration drive and you increased voter participation by 48% on your campus, that's something you want to highlight. If somebody in your executive committee got an award for outstanding leadership, or an award being recognized from the state conference or even from the national convention, that's something you want to recognize, because that's also a reflection of your unit and what you do at home locally. So on the second paragraph, you see that it's talked about the programs that were hosted. So you see that there was an N-word panel discussion. There was also a membership drive and events encouraging civic engagement around voter education, voter registration. And then if we go to the next slide, you see, well, there's the example of how you can highlight somebody or the unit's accolades that you've received. So based off this work, we have received this, we have received that. So right here it says our accolades include Student Leader of the Year, Best Student Organization of the Year, Community Service Award. So this is basically saying that everything that I've just said before has also been recognized and awarded from somebody else. So making that story more compelling to the donor themselves. And then from there, going down to the next paragraph, like I said, you want to get to the what and the act. So what is the event and the acts? So this event was towards tobacco education. Given a history of the program, talking about the partnership in between the NAACP and the Truth Initiative. Also bringing more light to how we got selected for the program. So if there's a competition or if there's some type of friendly competition that's going on, that's something that you want to highlight, because that's not something that everybody got a chance to do, and it means something if your chapter has got selected for that program. So going from the background to the actual acts. So the acts is we're having a panel discussion, and it says right here, we are eager and excited about hosting this event and currently looking for sponsors to underwrite the expenses for blank. So this is where you can make a list or you can ask for a certain amount. What I've learned for the past is asking, it's actually itemizing it of what you're looking for. And then from there, usually I know that every time that I've done it, I just got like a gift card, which is really more than what I asked for. And you're actually able to use it for different events. So constructing your letter as such. And then also, it's not just about you gaining something. Also, the company has to gain something out of this as well. And what I also learned is that being listed as a sponsor is also great, and that's something that a company wants to put their name on. So, and then you want to end it with the thanks. I always want to say thank you for your support. And if there are continued support, you want to say thank you for your continued support moving forward.
So real quick, this letter and another example are available for you to download on this webinar. And so if you go into the handouts area, you can download copies of this and use it as an example for your own solicitation or sponsorship letters. And so this is a really great model of how to send out a sponsorship letter. So feel free to download those and share those with your units. So campus/community funding proposals, right? So oftentimes, if you were interested in creating a proposal for a project, or making sure that you have an itemized or basically a line item that is constantly funded every year, you want to have a funding proposal for your project, right? So oftentimes this includes a description of the project or what is your annual project. So maybe you constantly have a Freedom Fund dinner on your campus or in your community every year around the same time for Black History Month. Or maybe you are having an MLK event every single year on MLK Day, right? Those are things that annually happen. You go to convention every year. You go to Kratai every year, right? These are things that you do annually, right? And so instead of having to fight for funding every single year, if you can put a funding proposal together that asks for a line item budget that you are constantly allocated funds every year, you will be also given those funds every year to continue going to those events, right? And so we want to think about how are we getting funding for the long term rather than just the short term. So this includes the description of it, the event at a glance, how the event will improve campus culture, right? So as I spoke about earlier, thinking about what are ways that the different things you're doing, if it's an event, if it's something you're attending like a conference or a Kratai, how will you going to this event or how will you putting on this event improve the campus culture? What can you bring back? What are ways you can use the knowledge to improve your local community, right? And that's essentially the goal of it, right? It's not for us just to go to those things, and Derek will talk about this later, but to learn from these spaces and bring back the knowledge to our campuses and our communities. You want to list what are other potential funding sources, right? Oftentimes people want to know what are the different contributors, who are other people who are contributing to the funding that you're getting. And then you want to have a line item budget, which we'll talk about right now. So when you have an itemized budget, you want to make sure that you include things such as transportation, venues, your food, your speakers, any miscellaneous items, with your total budget, and who are your current contributors, right? So if you see here on the right, you have a list of your items, you have the descriptions, you have the quantities, you have the cost per, and the item total, right? And so you want to make sure that you keep this together, or you have your treasurer or your financial committee have something that looks similar to this when you are putting together a funding proposal, right? People want to see that you have thought through what your event's going to look like, or thought through what your conference is going to look like, or whatever thing that you are attending or going to looks like, so they know exactly where the money is going to, right? Oftentimes, if you just ask for a certain amount of money, sometimes you can get it, but if they know exactly what they're funding, you have a higher chance of getting it. Especially sometimes if people may be able to provide those things for you. So maybe if you're asking for food and you are asking Costco to help fund some food sources, right? Instead of maybe paying for that food directly, maybe they can donate some food to your unit, right? So maybe you're having an MLK breakfast and you have certain items within your MLK breakfast that you use every single year. Instead of asking for $5,000 for food, maybe you can have them donate that food or that breakfast or those snacks for that breakfast or for that weekend, right? So you want to think strategically about how you're asking for money, right? If people can provide the service, have them provide the service. If they can provide the money, have them provide the money. But folks need to see an itemized budget.
All right. So another tool is profit night. So a profit night is when you're working with a corporate sponsor to donate a percentage of earnings to your organization. So this is where we're talking about going to Chipotle, having a night where we have a block area in between 5 to 9, and whoever comes in between that 5 to 9 and they show a flyer or they say NAACP, a certain percentage will go towards us at the end of the night. I have seen a lot of successful nights come out of this program. It's just knowing about what day you choose, what restaurant you choose, and then also how you pub as well. And we'll talk about that as we go on to the next slide. So what you'll need to do to have a profit night is you need to fill out an application. Most applications are online, to where you can go to, you can Google a restaurant or anything who does a profit night, or some local restaurants actually do profit nights as well. So either you would go online or go inside to fill out the application. Some of them may ask you to fill out a tax form, and from there they'll go through the verification process, and then they'll approve you and let you know what date and time you will have your fundraiser night. From there, some businesses that actually create the flyer for you and just add the name, or you can create your own flyer. This is where you make your money at. So if you go to the next slide for me, Wiz. Appreciate you, brother. So this is where you make your money at. So you're talking about pubbing. If you are, I believe that most NAACPs on the campuses, they have a pretty good following. Using the following that you do have, these are the people that you want to get out, and also tap it into the people who you don't usually come into contact with every day. When you pub, you want to pub. You want to pub to people on campus, the faculty and staff, also the people in your community. And I will also choose a popular restaurant. Choose a popular restaurant like Chipotle, CC's, Buffalo Wild Wings, Chick-fil-A. Those are that I've seen so far, which are very popular, and also get a lot of buy-in from my target audience. So you have to know your audience, know what they like, and also pick a good time and day to where there's also a lot of traffic. When it comes to this, you don't have to recreate the wheel. If you notice that your Chipotle is busy every Wednesday night from 5 to 7, you know that for a fact. If you was to go there, would be a line out the door. Don't recreate the wheel. just take advantage of that. And while they're there, pull up there and get them, and also talk to them about the NAACP, the work that you do, and why they should donate a portion of their proceeds to a better cause.
Right. Another good example of that is maybe you have meetings on Thursday, and maybe everybody wants to meet at Chipotle to get dinner before they go over to the meeting, right? So that's a great way to be like, oh, we're gonna get everyone together first to get food, and then we're gonna go to our meeting, or maybe we're gonna go to our meeting first, and then all of us together are gonna get some food at Chipotle, right? Thinking very strategically about how you are bringing people to this event, and not just hoping that people show up, right? If you don't like Derek said, if you don't publicize your event, people won't show up. And then again, like last but not least, you want to make sure that you are sending thank you within 72 hours. So make it a personal thank you note, or send a call, or making sure whatever way you are receiving funding that you are letting people know that you're grateful for it and what the results of that, so you can continue to maintain those relationships even after that funding event is over. All right. So next, we want to talk about some resources.
All right. First resources, a bank. So all of our college units, if you are in compliance, you have an EIN number. And what an EIN number is, it is your employee identification number. When you go to the bank and you were to ask if I can set up a bank account underneath this organization, they will ask for this number. This number is basically your social security number, or it's basically like your social security number for the organization or for your unit. So this is something that you do want to keep. And I believe only one person should have access to this, or two at the most. Now be a treasurer or and your advisor. But also your advisor should have the original form of this. So how do I get my EIN number, and what can I do with it? So with your EIN number, what you'll need to do is send me an email. This either come from your unit secretary or treasurer. And send me an email at dlewis@naacpnet.org. When you send an email, do not send it from your personal email account. Send this from your unit associated email account, because I'll be communicating with you back and forth, and I will also be sending you back your EIN number. So once you send me the email requesting your EIN number, I will send it back to you, communicating with other departments so that we can have access for this to you. Once I do send it back, it will be sent back on a PDF form. This form will be your IRS form that you will use, which will also be proper documentation for you to take to establish your bank account. So when we're talking about having proper documentation, the documentation that you'll need off rip is your identification, your letter from IRS with your EIN number attached to it, your constitution and bylaws, and your minutes of the election meeting. Again, what you'll need to bring with you is a form of identification, the letter that I will send back to you via email, which is from IRS, which has your EIN number attached to it, constitution and bylaws, and the minutes of the election meeting. The only person who should be on the bank account is the unit treasurer and the advisor. Those are the only two.
All right. And just like we talked about earlier, it's really important to have this EIN number, because oftentimes organizations will ask for this, especially organizations that are outside of your campus, especially when they're donating to you, to make sure they can also get that tax write-off as well.
Also, I forgot to mention, we were talking about transfer of power of this bank account. So if you are a senior, or if you just decide to transition out of your position, not to rerun, we're talking about transfer of power of this. Not only do you need to pass down documents and records of the previous year, but you also need to pass down the bank account information as well. So how this works, coming from experience, is that whoever was in leadership prior to getting elected out, we need to go to the bank account with the new leadership. You need to go there with an advisor being there present. You need to sign yourself off the account and turn in the current debit card. From there, the newly elected leadership, we need to bring those proper documentations that I just listed earlier, which would be your ID, constitution and bylaws, and the minutes of the election meeting. You won't need the letter from IRS again because it's already established. You just need those three. With the election minutes proving that there was an election that took place and that you're the new person in that position. From there, you'll go through the onboarding process of getting on the account. Hopefully, you have the same advisor. If you do have a different advisor, you have to go through the same process as well. And then there'll be a new card shipped to you or a temporary card given to you on site. This is really, really, really important when we're talking about keeping the funds for the unit and also making sure that transfer of power goes down smoothly as possible, so there won't be any confusion of what's going on blindly. All right, so if you're planning to attend the national convention or our regional kurtai, again, so we'll be coming to national staff. We'll come to each region, all 7 regions, to give you different training, new information, and skills. We're talking about continuing this fight for freedom. A really big thing this year is the census is coming up this year. So paying attention to what the census is, how does it play a role in my community, and also how do you play a role in it as well. And also as well for our regional kurtai, we are set to go for 100 at each one. So 100 attendees, 100 participants coming to each regional kurtai. We want everybody to get the training and have access to it as well, so that when it does come to the end of the day, we know that we have 100 people on the ground that's going to spread the information back at home, and also train others on the information that you learned there. Also, 110th annual convention is this year in July 20th to the 24th in Detroit, Michigan. This is where we'll have training, socials, workshops, luncheons, panel discussions, also opportunity for you to connect with each other across the nation. And this is also where we'll have our regional meetings and elections. So when we're talking about our regional meetings and elections, this is where we'll be selecting our regional leadership for the new year or the upcoming years. I know that this year, I believe that the National Youth Work Committee regional representatives will be going up for election this year. So something that you're interested to, there's also opportunity for leadership development coming up as well.
So some things to plan for as you're thinking about attending the regional kurtai or the national convention. You want to start thinking about just saving money for registration fees, for transportation, for accommodation, for meal tickets. And just like Derek said, what to expect is you'll see trainings and workshops, networking opportunities, socials, the regional meetings, which are really, really important, especially for the national convention, because that's where policies, decisions get made for your region. And it's really, really important that people attend those, right? We'll also be having public mass meetings. We'll be having really interesting discussions with phenomenal speakers who will be supporting us. And so definitely be on the lookout for more information as convention comes out, right? There should be more information coming in the coming weeks soon for that. As regards to regional kurtais, the information in terms of the where, the when, and how much are already on the website that we showed earlier. So feel free to check those out. Again, if your region is not on there, just hold tight. It'll be uploaded pretty soon.
All right. So if you're planning to attend anything and you're far in distance, recommendation that we have is taking a charter bus, if possible. The 2 recommended companies that we have is Trailways and Coachways. These are both buses that have been used before in the past. You can also see the states of where they are available at as well. So you see we have Alabama going all the way to Wisconsin. So we'll leave this here for a minute to see if you can identify your state. And if so, this can be an option for you to get to convention. If you definitely want to talk about having people to go together, you have your whole unit go. You have more than 15, 20 people. They do have buses by size as well, and that's also how the rates vary as well, based off the size of participants, or the size of the bus and number of participants that we have on the bus. So Trailways and Coachways, and also, like I said, identify if you see your state so this can be an option that we can get more people at convention or even at the regional Qatar.
So I believe that's our last slide for tonight. So we're going to check out some of the questions. If folks have any questions, feel free to drop that below. We're going to answer some questions. So I had a question about, do you want emails sent from the NAACP created account? And I believe just like Derek had said, those will, yes, it'd be best to send it from the NAACP created accounts.
Correct.
Can we get updated youth and college logos emailed to us? Yes, we can do that. After this, I can send out our updated logo for y'all to use. Our beautiful communications team has designed a logo that is consistent with all the logos in the department. So probably as people have seen in the past, there have been logos that have been created for every state convention, for every department. And so this year we really worked on making sure that we had a similar logo to everybody. So everybody has, similar colors, same color schemes, just, specific to the department or to their state. And so we can send those out to folks after this webinar. Can you go back to the slide about what to expect at convention? Yes, I can. Looking to see if there are any questions. Lawanda, did you have a question? We had a question from Lawanda about explaining the tax forms that we'll need. Can you go over that again, Derek?
Yeah. So there will be a tax form. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I can see my mic is muted. Okay. So yeah. So there'll be a tax form that the restaurant will ask for, or the local business will ask for, and this is basically a tax form asking for the organization's name, address, just general information, but really particularly looking for that EIN number to make sure that you have that established.
We had a question about estimated time for more information for convention. So, as many of you may know, this week is going to be the board meeting, which is happening in New York, and I believe they'll be finalizing some of the schedule stuff in terms of the convention. And so, I would say to be on the lookout for the next week to week and a half or so, like 2 weeks at most, because more information will come. So, the final decisions will probably be made, and then more information will come out in terms of what convention is going to look like, and costs and prices and hotels and all that good stuff. When is the regional Kratai? So let me bring back the schedule real quick. So here is the schedule for the regional Kratais. So region 1, that's our West Coast. That's April 26th to the 27th. Region 2, that is our Northeast. It's going to be May 3rd through the 4th. Region 3, April 13th through the 14th. Region 4, March 15th through the 16th. Region 5, March 28th through the 31st. And Region 6, April 5th through the 6th. Region 7, March 22nd through the 23rd. And then I saw the question after that. The site to register for Kachai is www.naacp.org/Kratai/. And so there you can register for the ones that are coming up. So the one that is coming up the soonest is Region 4. After Region 4, we will have Region 7, and then Region 5. And so those are the ones that are close to the date. So those ones should be posted on the website. So feel free to register if that is in your region. If your region is not there yet, I believe it has the hotels, but it doesn't necessarily have the registration link. Something that we're going to be doing this Friday, Derek, we're going to be sending an RSVP link for folks to reserve their spot for Katai. We want to, make sure we're getting as many people as possible to be able to attend Katai and support people in planning to get there.
That's correct.
If my unit already has an EIN number but doesn't have the documentation on the tax ID, can we email Derek to get that document?
Yes, you can.
Yep. Perfect. Can I send out an email to link with this presentation? Yes, we will. After this, usually the next day, we send out this presentation with all the links to it as well. So feel free to download that, share that with people, and let people know about the upcoming Katai as well as convention. Cost is $50. Yes. So right now, for the ones that are advertised, the cost for youth is $50. So again, we also want to be thinking about raising funds to make sure that as many of our officers or leaders can go to that. As you can see by the dates, right? The dates are usually a Friday, Saturday. And so maybe if you're not able to attend Friday, thinking about attending Saturday, how you can get to the Kratai. We're going to be having workshops in the morning. We're going to be having some planning sessions in the afternoon. And then after that, maybe you might want to leave. And so thinking about, strategically, depending on maybe your schedule. So some students are in school on Friday. What does it look like to attend on just Saturday? But if people can attend for both Friday and Saturday, how can they do that? I know we're also thinking about having a advisor training as well for folks on Friday. So thinking about how to plan your schedule as the finalized schedules for Katais come out. Anything to add to that, Derek?
No, sir, I do not.
Would you suggest a collection basket at church to raise funds? Yeah, I would definitely suggest that. I think, letting people know what the NAACP is about, as most churches do know, but talking about, hey, we have the upcoming Kratai, we have upcoming national convention, we want to support our youth units in getting to these spaces so they can come back with skills to help improve the community. For folks who are able to donate, this is a perfect opportunity to donate. And so if that's a space where people are connected, right? And if you think about the history of the NAACP, it has been very much tied to organizing that's happened in the church. And so that's definitely a perfect space to be able to talk with people and connect with people about supporting young people and attending these events, as well as supporting your units. So that's definitely a great space. It's high for youth. Yeah. So someone said the price $50. It is looking high right now. That's definitely something that we might want to talk about. So the way that the Kratais are organized, they're organized by our regional directors, and so we definitely want to speak with the regional directors as well as the regional leadership in terms of thinking about, especially for the future, how Kratais can be more accessible, right? And so the reason why we wanted to have this webinar is to make sure that people are thinking about raising funds, that people are starting to raise funds, that people are thinking about how to raise consistent funds, but also thinking about how can we talk to our regions, thinking about, what is the support, right? So even thinking if it's going to be $50, how is the region or how is the state or how are the adult units going to support the youth and college students getting to Kratai this year, right? Oftentimes we talk about supporting the youth, and when we get to these spaces, we don't see youth. We're like, where are the youth? Where are the youth? We want to support them. Well, this is the opportunity, right? It's time for us to actually support the youth and actually make sure that they're able to get to these different spaces and events. Show the map. I will do that right now. This is the map of the 7 regions. Look at your state, identify a region, and you can identify where your Katai will be. We have a question, Derek, about do we have any good company suggestions for custom branded items like shirts, bags, pens for units? Do you know any good ones?
So with those, so I usually tend to go and shop with local businesses or black-owned businesses. That's just with me in my past. But I don't know any corporations off the top of my head. Wiz, do you have any suggestions?
I'm trying to think about the one that we used for convention last year. It was a group. Let me look at it right now. We can send some of these suggestions out later as well. But it was this group called Larry Beck's Company. They were actually really quick and able to actually support us in getting all of our orders in actually really really quickly. And so that's a really great company to check out. They are based in Maryland, and so they do T-shirts, they do pins, they do pens, they do swag bags, they do all that good stuff. And so it's Larry Beck and Company, LARRYBECK and Company. You can check out their website. They also do trophies and things like that. And so if you're having, I know I'm seeing people doing different image awards on their campuses. People are having different awards ceremonies. People are having different dinners. If you're interested in, creating different awards or different, memorabilia for those events, definitely check them out. But we definitely can provide lists of good companies, especially like thinking about Black-owned businesses. That's something that we're actually trying to make a goal for convention, is to make sure that we are trying to support as many Black-owned businesses in the putting on of our convention. All right. Any last minute questions? We're getting ready to wrap up. Thank you all so much for being on this webinar with us tonight. Again, if you have any questions, definitely feel free to email us at youthandcollegE@naacpnet.org. You feel free to download the handouts that are on this webinar. Those definitely be supportive in creating solicitation and sponsorship letters. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions about support in planning to attend Kratai or attend convention. We want to support the most amount of units being able to attend these phenomenal events. All right, I'm not seeing any more questions here. So again, thank you so much. Did you want to say anything before we wrap up, Derek?
Thank you guys for checking out to join us on this webinar tonight. It really does speak volumes of where you want to take your unit and elevate your unit to go. Can't wait to see you guys at the regional Qatar and also at the convention in July. And you guys be safe out there, celebrate Black History Month and everything that's in it, not even the month of February, but every day. And peace. Have a good night, y'all.
Thanks so much, Derek. I appreciate all the love and support. And again, we just want to make sure we're supporting people in raising much amount of funds and making sure they have sustainable funding for the foreseeable future, especially if your unit has struggled in the past. And so we're so glad to have Derek, our new field organizer, on the job with us, supporting our units in the field. Every day he's making calls and supporting folks and making sure they're in compliance. Today is March 13th, and so we have a little bit over little over 2 weeks before the first compliance deadline is. And so definitely get a call in with him or myself to get supported in getting into compliance before that deadline. And take care, y'all.